Have you ever depended on someone, trusted that person to take care of you, and God let that person abandon you? I want to take a quick look at an overlooked part of Matthew 18:21 through 19:1. That's the one where Peter asks Jesus how often he's supposed to forgive his brother. And Jesus tells the story of how the kingdom of heaven is like a king who decides to settle accounts. One servant owes the king this astronomical amount of money that he could never possibly pay back. So the king wants to set things right. The king orders that this guy and his possessions and his wife and kids get sold. People being sold into slavery so the king could get his money back. We all know this super in-debt servant begs for an opportunity to pay the king back, and the king pities the debtor and just erases the debt completely and lets the guy go. We all know what happens next. Another servant owes this servant a really small amount of money. So this hypocrite goes and tries to beat the money out of his fellow servant. Well, the hypocrite gets reported back to the king, and the king says, guess what happens to hypocrites who don't learn from their mistakes? Off to the torturers with you, sir. Ciao for now. I want to take a second to look back at the tiny detail that gets overlooked all the time in this passage. The wife and kids of this hypocrite and all of their worldly possessions. It looks like the king in this analogy took the breadwinner away from his dependents, right? Let's rewind a bit. First, the king was going to sell the wife and kids because of the husband/father's sin. But in the end, when the hypocrite shows his true colors, the king lost all pity for him. The wife and children had their husband and father taken from them. Now, in Jewish culture, this means that they were effectively considered a widow and orphans, respectively. But they were not enslaved as a result of this man's irresponsibility, placating lies, and hypocrisy. They were still free. Often, when I lose the support of a person I relied on, especially when I was supposed to be able to rely on that person because of the nature of our relationship, I feel abandoned. And that's understandable. But if I take a moment to reframe these experiences as something that happens in the kingdom of heaven, so it happens under God's sovereignty, I can see that the same God who permitted this hardship is the same God who took this irresponsibility, placating, lying hypocrite out of my life. Yeah, that makes life hard, but it also keeps me free. Also, if you think about it, this same God also reminds us over and over again to take care of the widow and the orphan, the abandoned, the needy. So often what looks like abandonment is protection, is provision, is rescue, is freedom, which in the long term is way easier than having to make things work with somebody who is like the faithless servant in this scripture. Besides, God let that person abandon you in whatever shape that abandonment took, physically, emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. But look more closely. God didn't abandon you. Can you accept that kind of a reframe, or do you want to change my mind? Let me know what you think in the comments.